Hello, I'm Mrs. Evelyn. Welcome to my channel. I hope you enjoy today's story. She never thought the word cancer would be the thing that showed her who people really were. But that's exactly what happened. Margaret was 52 when the doctor said it. Stage 3. Breast cancer. Aggressive. The kind that doesn't ask permission before it tears through your life. She sat in that cold office, holding a pamphlet about treatment options, and all she could think about was how she was going to tell her family. Her husband, Richard, had been with her for 28 years. Her daughter, Christine, was 26, living at home while she figured things out, which really meant she hadn't figured out anything at all. Margaret had always been the one who held everything together. She cooked, she cleaned, she worked part-time at the library, and she never complained. That's just who she was. When she got home that day, they were both in the living room. Richard was watching a game. Christine was on her phone, scrolling through something that made her laugh every few seconds. "I need to talk to you both," Margaret said. Richard turned down the volume. Christine didn't look up. "I went to the doctor today," Margaret continued. Her voice was steady, but her hands weren't. "It's cancer. They found a tumor. I'm going to need surgery and then chemotherapy." There was silence. Not the kind that feels full, the kind that feels empty. Richard stared at the TV screen, even though the sound was off. Christine finally looked up, her face pale. "How bad is it?" Richard asked. "Bad enough," Margaret said. "I'm going to need help. The treatment is going to be hard. I'll be weak for a while. Maybe a long while." Another silence. "We'll figure it out," Richard said, but his voice didn't sound like he meant it. That night, Margaret couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to Richard snore beside her. She kept thinking about the way he'd looked at her when she told him. Not with fear, not with sadness, with something worse. Inconvenience. The surgery happened 2 weeks later. It went well, the doctors said, but that didn't mean much. The cancer was still there, hiding in places they couldn't cut out. She'd need chemo. Months of it. Maybe more. Richard drove her home from the hospital. He didn't say much. When they got to the house, Christine was standing in the doorway, her arms crossed. "Mom, we need to talk," she said. Margaret was still weak from the anesthesia. Her chest hurt. Everything hurt. But she nodded and followed Christine inside. Richard sat down on the couch. Christine stood. Margaret lowered herself carefully into the armchair, feeling like her body didn't belong to her anymore. "This is really hard for us," Christine started. "We didn't sign up for this." Margaret blinked. "Sign up for what?" "Taking care of someone who's sick," Christine said. Her voice was sharp, defensive. "I mean, I'm 26, Mom. I'm supposed to be living my life, and now you need constant help? For months, maybe years?" "I'm your mother," Margaret said quietly. "I know that," Christine snapped. "But that doesn't mean I have to give up everything to be your nurse." Margaret looked at Richard. He was staring at his hands. "Richard?" she said. He finally looked up. His face was tired, guilty, but also decided. "Christine's right," he said. "This is too much. I didn't marry you thinking I'd have to do this. I'm not cut out for it, Margaret. I'm sorry, but I'm not." The room felt like it was shrinking. "You're leaving me?" Margaret's voice cracked. "We're not leaving you," Richard said quickly. We can't stay. Not like this. You'll be okay. There are nurses, programs. You'll figure it out." "I have cancer," Margaret whispered. "I'm sick. I need you. And we need to take care of ourselves," Christine said, her voice cold. I can't watch you go through this, Mom. I can't. It's too hard. Margaret felt something break inside her chest. Not her heart. Something deeper. Something she didn't know could break. When? She asked. Soon, Richard said. We've already talked about it. Christine's going to stay with her boyfriend. I'm going to move in with my brother for a while. We'll leave you enough money for the first month. After that, you'll have to manage on your own. Margaret didn't cry. She couldn't. She just sat there, feeling like she was disappearing. 3 days later, they were gone. Richard packed his things in garbage bags. Christine took 2 suitcases and didn't say goodbye. They left on a Tuesday morning while Margaret was still in bed, too weak to get up. She heard the front door close. Then she heard Richard's car start. Then she heard nothing. The house was so quiet, it hurt. Margaret lay there for a long time, staring at the ceiling. She thought about all the years she'd spent taking care of them, all the meals she'd cooked, all the laundry she'd folded, all the times she'd put them first, always, without question. And now, she was alone. The chemo started a week later. It was worse than anyone had told her. She lost her hair. She lost weight. She threw up so much she thought her body would turn inside out. Some days she couldn't get out of bed. Some days she couldn't even remember what it felt like to be healthy. She had no one. Her neighbors helped a little. Mrs. Patterson from next door brought her soup sometimes. A nurse came twice a week to check on her. But mostly, Margaret was alone with her sickness and her silence. She thought about calling Richard. She thought about calling Christine. But every time she picked up the phone, she put it back down. They'd made their choice, and she wouldn't beg. 2 months into treatment, something strange happened. A lawyer called. Ms. Margaret Holloway? The voice on the phone said. Yes. Margaret answered weakly. My name is David Chen. I'm calling about your uncle, Robert Pritchard. Margaret frowned. Uncle Robert? She hadn't thought about him in years. He'd moved out west when she was a child. They'd exchanged Christmas cards sometimes, but that was it. What about him? She asked. I'm sorry to inform you that he passed away 3 weeks ago, the lawyer said. Margaret closed her eyes. She hadn't known him well, but it still hurt. I'm calling because you're listed as his sole heir, the lawyer continued. Margaret's eyes opened. His what? His sole heir. Mr. Pritchard left his entire estate to you. We need to schedule a meeting to discuss the details. Margaret's heart started beating faster. How much are we talking about? There was a pause. Approximately $18 million, the lawyer said. The phone almost slipped out of Margaret's hand, and for the first time in months, she felt something other than pain. She felt hope. Margaret sat in the lawyer's office a week later, still wearing the scarf that covered her bald head. She'd taken a taxi there because she was too weak to drive. The office was downtown, in one of those tall buildings with marble floors and expensive art on the walls. She felt small sitting in the leather chair across from David Chen's desk. Your uncle was a very successful businessman, Mr. Chen explained, sliding papers across the desk toward her. He started with nothing and built a tech company in the 90s. Sold it in 2005 for a considerable amount. He invested wisely. Never married. No children. You were the only family he had left. Margaret stared at the numbers on the paper. $18,400,000. Plus properties. Plus stocks. It didn't feel real. Why me? She asked. We barely spoke. Mr. Chen smiled gently. He wrote you a letter. Would you like to read it? He handed her an envelope. Her name was written on it in shaky handwriting. She opened it carefully. Dear Margaret, you probably don't remember, but when you were 8 years old, You sent me a drawing. It was a picture of a house with a big sun and a family standing in front. You wrote on the bottom, "I hope you're happy wherever you are, Uncle Robert." I kept that drawing my whole life. It's hanging in my office right now. You were the only person in the family who ever thought about whether I was happy. Everyone else just forgot I existed. I heard you got married. I heard you had a daughter. I wanted to reach out, but I didn't know how. Too much time had passed. But I never forgot that little girl who cared about a relative she barely knew. I don't have anyone else, Margaret. So it's all yours. I hope it helps you build the kind of life you always deserved. With love, Uncle Robert. Margaret's hands were shaking. Tears ran down her face, dripping onto the letter. She hadn't cried when Richard left. She hadn't cried when Christine walked out. But now, holding words from a man she barely remembered, she couldn't stop. "Take your time," Mr. Chen said quietly. When she finally looked up, she asked, "What do I need to do?" "Sign some papers. We'll transfer everything to your name. The money will be in your account within a few days. The properties are yours immediately. There's a house in Scottsdale, Arizona, a condo in Seattle, and some land in Montana." Margaret nodded, her mind spinning. "There's one more thing," Mr. Chen said. "Your uncle left instructions. He wanted you to use the money however you needed. But he specifically mentioned that if you were ever in trouble, he hoped it would save you." Margaret laughed, but it came out like a sob. "He did," she whispered. "He really did." The money hit her account 3 days later. Margaret sat in her bedroom staring at her phone, looking at the number over and over. She'd never seen that many zeros in her life. The first thing she did was call the hospital. "I want the best treatment available," she told the billing department. "I don't care what it costs." They transferred her to an oncologist who specialized in aggressive cancers, Dr. Sarah Winters. She had a waiting list 6 months long. But when Margaret offered to pay cash for immediate care, suddenly there was an opening. Dr. Winters was everything Margaret's previous doctor wasn't. She was thorough. She was kind. She looked at Margaret like she was a person, not just a sick body taking up space. "Your treatment so far has been standard," Dr. Winters said, reviewing Margaret's file. "But there's a newer protocol that's showing much better results. It's expensive and most insurance won't cover it. But if you can afford it—" "I can," Margaret said. The new treatment was brutal, but it worked. Within 3 months, the tumors were shrinking. Within 6 months, they were gone. Dr. Winters kept saying the word remission, and Margaret kept waiting for it to feel real. But it did feel real. Every day she got stronger. Her hair started growing back. She could walk without feeling like she was carrying 1,000 pounds. She could eat without throwing up. She could sleep without pain waking her up every few hours. She bought a new house, nothing huge. Just a quiet place in a nice neighborhood with a garden in the back. She furnished it slowly, carefully, choosing things that made her happy. A blue couch, plants in every window, books everywhere. She didn't tell anyone about the money. Not the neighbors, not her old friends from the library. No one, especially not Richard, especially not Christine. 10 months after they'd left her to die alone, Margaret was sitting in her garden reading a book when her phone rang. She didn't recognize the number. "Hello? Mom?" Margaret's whole body went cold. "Christine, it's me," Christine said. Her voice sounded different, smaller. "I know I don't have the right to call, but I needed to hear your voice." Margaret didn't say anything. "How are you?" Christine asked. Are you still sick? Why are you calling, Christine?" There was a long pause. I heard something. A friend of a friend saw you at a store. She said you looked good, healthy. I needed to know if it was true." Margaret's jaw tightened. "It's true. I'm in remission." "Oh my God," Christine breathed. "That's amazing. Mom, I'm so happy for you." "Are you?" "Yes, I am. I know you probably don't believe me, but I am." Margaret closed her book. "What do you want, Christine?" Another pause. Longer this time. "Dad and I want to see you," Christine said. "We want to talk. We made a mistake, Mom. A huge mistake. We were scared and selfish, and we shouldn't have left you. We know that now. We want to make it right." Margaret laughed. "It wasn't a nice sound. You want to make it right," she repeated. "Please," Christine said. "Just let us come over. Let us explain." "How did you get this number?" Margaret asked. I called the hospital. They gave me your new number." "My new number," Margaret said slowly. "So you knew I moved?" "I didn't know for sure. How did you know I moved, Christine?" Silence. "Tell me the truth," Margaret said, her voice hard. Christine's voice got quieter. "Someone saw you. In a nice neighborhood, getting out of a new car, and they said you looked like you had money." There it was. "So that's what this is about," Margaret said. No, Mom, it's not like that. We just want to apologize. We want you back in our lives. Family is family, right?" Margaret stood up. Her legs were steady. Her hands weren't shaking. "You left me when I was dying," she said quietly. "You walked out when I needed you most. You didn't call. You didn't check on me. You let me go through hell alone. We were wrong. And now you think you can come back because someone told you I have money. It's not about money. Don't lie to me, Christine. You're not good at it." She could hear Christine crying on the other end of the line. "Please," Christine sobbed. "Please, Mom. I miss you. Dad misses you. We want our family back." Margaret looked at her garden, at her house, at the life she'd built from the ashes of the one they'd burned down. "Give me your father's number," she said. "Really?" Christine's voice lifted with hope. "Give me his number. I'll call him myself." Christine rattled off the digits. Margaret wrote them down. "We can come this weekend," Christine started. Margaret hung up. She sat back down in her chair. She looked at Richard's number on the paper in her hand, and she smiled. Not a happy smile, a different kind of smile. The kind that comes when you realize you hold all the cards, and the people who threw you away are about to learn what that feels like. Margaret waited 2 days before calling Richard. She wanted him to wonder. She wanted him to hope. She wanted him to taste what it felt like to wait for someone else to decide your fate. When she finally dialed his number, he answered on the first ring. "Margaret?" His voice was different too. Older. Tired. "Hello, Richard." "Oh my God, Margaret. I can't believe it's really you." "Christine said you called. I've been waiting. I didn't think you'd actually—" "I want to talk to you," Margaret interrupted. "Face to face." Yes, of course. When? Where?" "We can come to you, or we can meet somewhere. Whatever you want. Tomorrow, 2 o'clock. There's a coffee shop on Maple Street called The Grind. Do you know it?" "I'll find it," Richard said quickly. "Should Christine come too?" "No," Margaret said. "Just you first." Okay, that's fine. Margaret, I just want you to know." She hung up. The next day, Margaret arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes early. She wore a simple dress, nothing fancy, and her hair had grown back enough that she didn't need a scarf anymore. She looked like herself again. Better than herself. Healthier than she'd been in years. She ordered a tea and sat by the window. When Richard walked in, she almost didn't recognize him. He'd aged. His hair was thinner. His face was heavier. He wore a wrinkled shirt and jeans that didn't fit right. He looked like a man who'd been living in his brother's spare room for almost a year. His eyes found her, and something crossed his face. Shock. Maybe regret. Maybe something worse. He walked over slowly and sat down across from her. "You look amazing," he said. "I'm alive," Margaret said, "if that's what you mean. I heard you're in remission. That's incredible. I'm so glad, Margaret. I really am." She sipped her tea and said nothing. Richard shifted in his seat. "I know you probably hate me. I know what we did was unforgivable, but I want you to know that I've thought about you every single day. I've regretted it every single day." "Have you?" Margaret said flatly. "Yes. Leaving you was the worst thing I've ever done. I was scared and I was selfish, and I couldn't handle seeing you sick. But that doesn't make it right. Nothing makes it right." "You're right," Margaret said. "Nothing does." Richard looked down at his hands. "Christine misses you. She cries about it all the time. She knows she messed up. And you." "I miss you too," he said quietly. "I miss our life. I miss our home. I miss having a family." Margaret leaned back in her chair. "Where are you living now?" "With my brother. It's temporary. I've been trying to find my own place, but things have been tight financially. And Christine, she's with her boyfriend, but that's not going well either. He's not a good guy, Margaret. She needs her family right now." "Her family," Margaret repeated. "The family she walked away from." Richard looked up at her. "I know we don't deserve another chance, but I'm asking for one anyway. We made a terrible mistake, the worst mistake, but we're still your family. That has to count for something." Margaret set down her tea. "Did Christine tell you why she really called me?" Richard's face went blank. "She said she missed you." "She called me because someone saw me in a nice neighborhood, driving a nice car, looking like I have money. That's why she called, Richard. Not because she missed me, because she thought there was something to gain." "That's not true. Don't," Margaret said sharply. "Don't insult me by lying. I know what this is. I know exactly what this is." Richard's jaw tightened. "Okay, fine, yes. We heard you came into some money, but that's not why we want to come back. We want to come back because we love you." "You left me to die alone," Margaret said, her voice steady and cold. "You packed your bags and walked out while I was too weak to get out of bed. You didn't call. You didn't check on me. You didn't care whether I lived or died. And now you show up, ready to play family again, because someone told you I'm not poor anymore. We were wrong." "You were worse than wrong," Margaret said. "You were cruel. You were cowards. Both of you." Richard's face went red. "What do you want me to say? That I'm a piece of garbage? Fine, I'm a piece of garbage. Is that what you want to hear?" "No," Margaret said. "I want to hear the truth. Tell me what you really want." He stared at her. Then he looked away. "I'm broke," he said finally. "Living with my brother is humiliating. I can't afford my own place. I lost my job 6 months ago. I'm barely getting by." "And Christine. Her boyfriend kicked her out last week. She's back at my brother's place too. It's a mess, Margaret. Everything's a mess." Margaret nodded slowly. "So you thought you'd come back to me? Your sick, dying wife who you abandoned. Except now she's not sick anymore. And she has money. So suddenly it's worth pretending you care. I do care. No, Margaret said. You don't. You care about what I can do for you. There's a difference. Richard's face crumpled. Please, Margaret. I know I don't deserve it, but please. Let us come home. Let us be a family again. I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. I swear. Margaret stood up. I'm going to tell you something, Richard, and I want you to listen very carefully. He looked up at her, his eyes desperate. You're right, she said. You don't deserve it, and you're not getting it. Margaret, we're getting divorced. My lawyer will send you the papers next week. You'll sign them. You won't fight it. You won't ask for anything, because if you do, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what you did. Your family, your friends, everyone. Richard's face went white. You can't. Yes, Margaret said. I can, and I will. She picked up her purse and started to walk away. What about Christine? Richard called after her. Margaret stopped. She didn't turn around. Tell her I'll call her, she said, but not for what she thinks. She walked out of the coffee shop and didn't look back. That night, Margaret sat in her living room, staring at her phone. Christine's number was on the screen. She'd been staring at it for an hour. Finally, she pressed call. Mom. Christine answered immediately. Mom, is that you? It's me. Did you talk to Dad? What did he say? Your father and I are getting divorced, Margaret said. Silence. What? Christine's voice was small. You heard me. We're done. He's out of my life. Permanently. But I thought... He said you were going to talk. He said there was a chance. There's no chance, Christine. Not with him. She could hear Christine breathing on the other end of the line. What about me? Christine whispered. Margaret closed her eyes. This was the hard part, the part she'd been dreading. I don't know, she said honestly. What do you mean you don't know? I mean, I don't know if I can forgive you. I don't know if I want you in my life. You're my daughter, Christine. You're my daughter and you left me to die. I'm sorry, Christine sobbed. I'm so sorry, Mom. I was stupid and scared and selfish. I know that. I hate myself for it. Please, please don't shut me out. Margaret's throat was tight. You hurt me worse than anyone has ever hurt me. I know. You made me feel like I didn't matter, like I was disposable. I know. I almost gave up, Christine. There were nights I wanted to die because the loneliness was worse than the cancer. Christine was crying so hard she could barely speak. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Margaret wiped her own eyes. I'm not going to pretend this didn't happen. I'm not going to act like we can just go back to normal. I don't want normal, Christine said desperately. I just want a chance. Any chance. Please, Mom. Margaret was quiet for a long time. You can visit me, she said finally. Once a month. We'll have coffee. We'll talk. But you're not moving back in. You're not part of my daily life. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Okay, Christine said immediately. Okay, yes. Thank you. Thank you, Mom. And Christine. Yes? If this is about money, tell me now. Tell me so I can walk away clean. It's not, Christine said, her voice breaking. I swear it's not. I just want my mom back. That's all I want. Margaret didn't know if she believed her, but she wanted to. God, she wanted to. First Saturday of next month, Margaret said. 2:00. I'll text you the address. I'll be there, Christine said. I promise. Margaret hung up and sat in the silence of her beautiful house. She'd given Richard nothing. She'd given Christine almost nothing. And somehow, that felt exactly right. The first Saturday came faster than Margaret expected. She cleaned her house that morning, then stopped herself. Why was she cleaning? This wasn't a celebration. This was a test, a careful, fragile test, to see if her daughter was capable of being honest. At 1:55, the doorbell rang. Margaret took a breath and opened the door. Christine stood on the porch, holding a small plant, a succulent in a ceramic pot. She looked thinner, older. Her eyes were red like she'd been crying recently. "Hi, Mom," she said quietly. "Come in." Christine stepped inside and stopped, looking around at the house. Margaret watched her face carefully. She was looking for that flash of greed, that calculating look. But all she saw was sadness. "It's beautiful," Christine said. "You have a beautiful home?" "Thank you." They sat in the living room. Margaret made tea. They were both quiet, the silence stretching between them like a wall. "I brought you this," Christine said, holding out the plant. "I remembered you always wanted a garden. I know it's small, but—" Margaret took it. "Thank you." More silence. "Mom, Let me talk first," Margaret said. Christine nodded and closed her mouth. "I've spent the last few weeks thinking about what I want to say to you," Margaret began. "I've rehearsed it in my head 100 times. But now that you're here, I realize I don't have a speech. I just have questions." "Okay. Why did you really leave?" Christine looked down at her hands. "I was scared." "Of what?" "Of watching you suffer. Of watching you die. Of having my whole life become about taking care of you." She looked up, tears in her eyes. "I know how that sounds. I know how selfish that is. But you asked for the truth." Margaret nodded. "At least you're honest now." "I thought about you every day," Christine continued. "I'd wake up wondering if you were okay, if you were eating, if you were in pain. But I couldn't bring myself to call, because if I called, I'd have to face what I'd done. And I was too much of a coward." "You were." "I know." Christine wiped her eyes. "Dad kept saying you'd be fine, that you were strong, that we'd done the right thing by leaving because we'd just be in the way. But I knew he was lying. I knew we'd abandoned you." Margaret sipped her tea. "Your father came back for money. Why did you come back?" Christine was quiet for a long moment. "At first, honestly, I came back because I heard you were rich, and I thought maybe you could help me. My life was falling apart, and I thought, if I could just see you, maybe you'd save you." Margaret finished. "Yeah." Christine's voice was barely a whisper. "But then I saw you at the coffee shop. Dad told me about it. He said you looked healthy and strong and like you didn't need anybody. And I realized that's what I'd done to you. I'd left you when you needed me, and now you didn't need me anymore. You'd survived without us." "I did. And you should be proud of that," Christine said, her voice shaking. "But Mom, it killed me, knowing that you went through all of that alone, knowing that I wasn't there, that I chose not to be there." Margaret watched her daughter cry. Part of her wanted to reach out. Part of her wanted to stay exactly where she was. "Do you know what the worst part was?" Margaret asked. Christine shook her head. "It wasn't the cancer. It wasn't the chemo. It wasn't even the pain. It was lying in that house, in that bed, knowing that the two people I loved most in the world decided I wasn't worth staying for." "Mom, let me finish." Margaret's voice was steady but hard. "You and your father made a choice. A deliberate choice, to walk away when things got hard. And now you want me to forgive you, because you're sorry. But Christine, being sorry doesn't change what you did. It doesn't give me back those months. It doesn't erase what I went through alone. Christine was sobbing now. I know it doesn't. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect anything. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. That I hate myself for what I did. That if I could go back and change it, I would. Margaret set down her tea. But you can't. No, I can't. They sat in silence. Margaret looked at her daughter. Really looked at her. She saw a woman who'd made a terrible mistake. Who'd chosen wrong. Who'd been weak when she should have been strong. But she also saw the little girl who used to bring her dandelions from the yard. The teenager who used to tell her everything. The young woman who used to hug her good night. I don't trust you, Margaret said finally. I want to be very clear about that. I don't trust you, and I don't know if I ever will again. Christine nodded, tears streaming down her face. But you're still my daughter, Margaret continued, and I'm not going to throw you away like you threw me away, because I'm not you. Thank you, Christine whispered. This doesn't mean we're fixed, Margaret said firmly. This doesn't mean I forgive you. This means I'm willing to see if you're capable of being the person you should have been all along. I am, Christine said. I'll prove it to you, however long it takes. It's going to take a very long time. I understand. Margaret stood up. You can visit once a month. Like I said, we'll have coffee. We'll talk. But that's it. You don't get to live here. You don't get to ask me for money. You don't get to expect anything from me except basic civility. Okay, and if I find out this is just an act, if I find out you're still that selfish girl who walked away, then this is over, permanently. Do you understand? I understand. Christine stood too, wiping her face. Can I hug you? Margaret hesitated. Then she nodded. Christine's arms went around her, holding on tight. Margaret stood stiffly at first. Then slowly, carefully, she put her arms around her daughter. It didn't feel like it used to. It didn't feel like home. But it felt like something, maybe the beginning of something. When Christine left an hour later, Margaret stood in her doorway and watched her drive away. She didn't know if she'd made the right choice. She didn't know if Christine would actually change. She didn't know if their relationship could ever be repaired. But she knew one thing for certain. She'd survived. She'd been betrayed by the people who were supposed to love her most. And she'd survived. She'd built a new life. A better life. A life where she didn't need anyone to save her because she'd saved herself. Richard was gone. That was final. That was justice. Christine was on probation. That was mercy. That was a choice. Margaret made, not because Christine deserved it, but because Margaret wanted to be the kind of person who could offer a chance, even when it wasn't earned. 3 months later, Margaret was in her garden planting roses when her phone rang. It was Christine. Hi, Mom. I was just calling to see if you wanted to have coffee next Saturday. I know it's my regular day next week, but I thought maybe, if you wanted to, we could meet twice this month. Margaret smiled. Let me think about it. Okay. No pressure. Christine. Yeah? How are you doing? Really? There was a pause. I got a job. Nothing fancy. Waitressing. But it's mine. I'm not living off anyone. I got my own apartment. It's small, but it's mine too. I'm proud of you. Christine's voice cracked. Really? Really? Thank you, Mom. That means everything. After they hung up, Margaret went back to her roses. The sun was warm on her face. Her hands were strong in the soil. Her body was healthy. She thought about Uncle Robert and his letter. She thought about the drawing she'd sent him when she was 8 years old. She thought about how one small act of kindness had saved her life decades later. She thought about Richard, living with his brother, signing divorce papers, learning what it meant to lose everything, because you threw away the only thing that mattered. She thought about Christine, working hard, trying to prove herself, carrying the weight of her mistake and maybe, just maybe, becoming someone better because of it. And she thought about herself, about the woman who'd been left to die and chose to live instead, who'd been betrayed and chose not to become bitter, who'd been hurt and chose not to hurt back in the same way. Life hadn't been fair to her, but in the end, it had been just. She'd lost her family when she needed them most, but she'd found herself, and sometimes that's the only justice that matters. Margaret stood up, brushed the dirt off her knees, and looked at her garden. Everything she'd planted was growing, slowly, patiently, beautifully, just like her. And for the first time in a very long time, she felt something she thought she'd lost forever. She felt whole. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe so you won't miss the next one. Thank you for listening. See you soon.